and good afternoon. This is Gilroy Madrid at Fort Stockton ISD in Fort Stockton, Texas. Hopefully, you guys can see me and hear me. We're on Twitter, Facebook Live. I think Twitter's Periscope. I think I'm not too sure. And then there's Facebook Live and, of course, YouTube Live as well. So I see there's about 14 or 15 people already online. Hopefully, they're watching. You can hear me. What I'm going to do is, first of all, it's been spring break for us this week here in Fort Stockton ISD, and we do appreciate, some time off. I know everybody does, and so thank you to the parents for being patient with their kids at home over the week, as kids were home, and hopefully they didn't drive you too nuts. But we do appreciate you guys doing that for your family, and we do appreciate all. We did have staff members working this week. We had some maintenance people and custodians and transportation, just again maintaining our buildings, making sure that we had everything that we needed to do to make sure we have school ready for next week. And so I'm going to go ahead and share a screen. Hopefully you guys can hear me and see me. I'll wait till usually someone out there pretty quick to say, I hear you, you see me. Let's see here. Just need one person. Who's going to be first? Yay, Ms. Baragon. Thank you very much. I can always count on Ms. Baragon to be one of the first ones. Appreciate it, Ms. Baragon. Hopefully you're having a good spring break and you got some rest. So thank you very much, Ms. Baragon. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start. Let me present my screen here. Well, that's pretty cool. Okay, we're going to leave it like that. Okay, so again, this is our, thank you, Frankie. Appreciate that. Frankie's always out there too, watching us on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And Deborah can hear us too. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Deborah's been working hard. And Miss Schellenberger. Miss Schellenberger's a pretty good fan too. Thank you, Miss Schellenberger, for being out there spreading the love. And Patsy's on there. Hey, Patsy. Hopefully you had a good spring break and you're ready to come back to Patsy's one of our wonderful cafeteria employees who does a great job of providing meals for our students at the high school. Shout out to Patsy. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start. First of all, I used to have a red little marker on here, but I don't know where it's at. So we're just gonna have to use my pointer here. Okay. All right. So we're gonna go over some things for today. I'm gonna go over the calendar, daylight savings, spring forward in the spring, and then masks, and then published procedures for counseling remote learning for individual students. We've had quite a few questions about that, and so I'm going to go over a little bit, and then just again some school information that we need to just kind of remind people what's going on. First of all, just remember that we did have a calendar change, which means basically for kids and staff and students is that school ends on the 27th, graduation is on the 28th. So those of you with seniors or those of you who have family from out of town, please let them know that graduation did change from a day in June. I believe it used to be June the 11th, but now it is May 28th. So keep that in mind for graduation. And I know that Mr. Alvarado is working with Jostens on trying to make sure they get correct information, or it just may be one of those things that a lot of the invitations to graduation were printed, but we felt, with the school board to go ahead and change the date just so we can have a little bit more of a break in the summer, so we're not going all the way into June and July because the teachers come back in August. So that's in place. So just keep that in mind. The next time we have a few days off is going to be Friday the 2nd of April and the 5th of April. Right now, we do not have to use those days as snow days because of what happened a couple of weeks ago with the weather and the snow. It was a statewide issue. So usually when it's a statewide issue, they put things in place in schools where we apply for waivers and things like that to make sure that we don't have to use our snow days. So hopefully we don't have to use them throughout the rest of the school year. But those of you who lived in West Texas know how this works sometimes. So that is that part. Just a reminder that we are springing forward. Okay, which begins on the 14th, which is Sunday of March. And so keep that in mind. And when you spring forward, it's usually people always be like, do I move the clock back? Do I move it forward? Just remember this: if it's in the fall, you fall back an hour. If it's in the spring, you spring forward an hour. Okay. And so the I guess their correct time is Sunday morning at 2 a.m. You go forward an hour. But I normally, if you have cell phones, usually they correct themselves the next day. But if you have watches or clocks like me, sometimes you have to just move them forward 1 hour yourself. So, and sometimes there's clocks that just fix themselves, some crazy way with technology. So that is this Sunday. And so those of you who are have kids, I encourage you to start getting them in a little bit routine. Some of you are already on your routines, whether they're at school or not. So I do appreciate that. But just keep that in mind for school starting on Monday. Okay. All right. Now here's we're going to talk about masks a little bit. This will be posted on our webpage and our Facebook, but it's going to be, you got to saw it first, Facebook Live or YouTube Live or Twitter Live. Today, well, first of all, this is on Wednesday, March 10th, Texas Governor Greg Abbott Executive Order number G829. I think it's 29, rescinded the mask mandate. It may have been a different number, maybe 34. And we'll change that here in a little bit before we post it. But nevertheless, FSISD will still continue with requiring face coverings in our schools. That's just the way it works. There's some documentation from TEA that says, hey, schools have to do this. And so that's going to be out there. We'll be putting that on our Facebook Live or Facebook and Twitter and what have you. So we still have to wear face coverings, and I'll go over that more of a little bit. And a lot of it has to do with Executive Order number 34. And if you remember, from the last time I covered this, we talked about the individuals strongly encouraged to wear face coverings over the nose, mouth, wherever not feasible, 6 feet or social distancing from another person, not in the same household. But no person may be required by any jurisdiction to wear a mandate the wearing of a face covering. But the thing about it is, if you are a property owner or a business owner, you can require people to wear masks if that's how you feel. But then schools are a little bit different. It said, okay, schools, you do have to. There, it mentions a thing here about schools and that they may not be required to open. That's the occupancy. That's not really an issue. The thing that it does say is that, and this is the part that people get a little confused at, nothing in this executive order precludes businesses or other establishments from requiring employees or customers to follow additional hygiene measures, including the wearing of face coverings. Precludes means prevent from happening or making impossible. So nothing in this order prevents people, businesses, households, private businesses, public businesses to say, hey, you need to wear a mask. So that's in there. And then it tells you here about, there's one, number 6 says, schools have to follow what TEA says. Well, we got a letter on March 3rd. And then, by golly, today we got another one on March 12th. And I saw it when I got on the computer this afternoon, and I thought, I hadn't even read it. So I'm thinking it has the updates to that probably have to do with some CDC information that went out. But I did check the part about masks, and that is still in there. Okay. And before we just keep in mind that in any type of letter or document that we get from Texas Education Agency or from the Governor Abbott, there's things in there, and executive orders are kind of crazy because it says one thing, but then you have to keep reading to really get a full understanding of what's going on. And sometimes documents from Texas Education Agency are the same way. But you just got to keep in mind that must means mandatory, shall means required, will means mandatory, must not, shall not, will not. That's all prohibited. It means you can't do it. May is optional, okay? And so is should. Should is an optional thing as well. Okay, so this is the letter that got put out on March 3rd, I believe. But unfortunately, there's another letter that got put out today. And I have to be honest with you, from what I looked at, when I read, there was some changes. And I think it came from what was CDC was saying about certain things. But for the most part, I do know that we still have to wear face coverings, okay? And this is part of that in that document. It's about 11 pages long. If you want to read it, great, more power to you. But if you notice here, it does say schools must comply with the following requirements. Every student, teacher, or staff member shall wear a mask over the nose, mouth when inside a school building, school facility, facilities used for school activities, or when outdoor space on school property are used for school activities, wherever it is not feasible to maintain 6 feet of social distancing from another person not in the same household, provided, however, that this mask requirement does not apply to the following. Okay. And the following is this information, which basically it's already been in place for a while. Talks about kids younger than 10, and talks about people with medical issues, if you're eating, if you're engaging in outside activities, and then any person giving a speech. There's nobody in my office right now, except a ghost maybe here or there, but other than that, there's nobody else, so I don't need to wear a mask, so we're good with that. We had some questions about international travel. Let me go over it again with you. If you have anybody who goes international travel, it's usually Mexico or any other country that people go out of town to for spring break or what have you. It does not mean here in the United States. It means if you go out of the country. All right. So that usually involves a passport. Okay. To go out of the country. I guess you gotta have a pass. You can have a passport too to fly a plane, but anyway, or to be on a plane to go to a different state. But if you go out of the country, they do recommend that you get tested 3 to 5 days after you travel. If it's negative, you gotta wait 7 days. You stay home. So there's about a 10 to 12, 15 to 13 day quarantine at home. You watch your symptoms, then you take precautions. If you let me make this bigger. Oh yay, I can see this now. Okay. If you are positive, then the whole thing that you don't travel, you immediately isolate yourself, you follow public recommendations. If you don't get tested, let's just say 3 to 5 days, you don't get tested, you're like, you know what, I'm not going to test. They do say you have to stay home for 10 days self-quarantine, watch your symptoms, and take precautions with other people. So that's in there as well. Okay. That's the travel part. People get a little confused with that, but international travel is to Mexico and or Canada, Britain, All right. This next thing is published procedure for canceling remote learning for individual students. If you go to this link here, which I can go to, it's a PDF document. It's basically saying this. Let me tell you what it says. This is kind of a big deal. We have some students who are just not doing well, where they're not doing well at all. They're struggling. They can't get their work done for whatever reason. And so there's procedures put in place by the Texas Education Agency that we can require students to come to school. Certain students who are not doing well, whether they can't get their work done, they're not logging into their stuff for work to do, they're not interacting with their teachers and students, and TEA has said you cannot do paper packets. Paper packets is not going to work, and that makes sense. How can we sit here and say that a paper packet is representative of what a teacher would do? There is no way that can be done. It's impossible. And so we have students who are just not doing well. And so they're not doing their work, they're not getting their work turned in, and they're struggling. And it's going to take a lot of time to catch up. And let me just give you this scenario. Let's just say you're behind 1 year, and then this next coming school year, you go to school every single day like you're supposed to. You're still behind one whole school year. And so to make up a year of being behind, you have to put in a lot of extra work. And more importantly, you got to put in some extra time. And so that's where kind of an issue sometimes happens. So if you're behind 6 months, the only way to make it up is you got to make up that time of 6 months. And so our teachers really want our students in school. I know they do. And they miss them. And I know some of our kids miss schools and things like that. I will tell you this. We've had 0 cases in our schools for the past 5 weeks, I believe. And so we're still going to continue doing the things we do in school to keep people safe, keep our students safe. We're still going to have masks. We're still going to do those things. And the other thing is that we've been very fortunate that before the president and Governor Abbott said all teachers can get vaccinated, we have done a great job with Joe Schuster, Betsy Briscoe at the hospital, Mr. Dominguez at the Pecos County Health person, and Mr. Bill Davis, and working with the Texas Department of State Department of Health Services, that in Pecos County, we were very fortunate to work with those individuals to get our staff vaccinated. And so we're ahead of the game. We only have a handful of people who want to get their vaccine who haven't gotten it yet. Just a handful of teachers, staff, custodians, just a handful. So we've been very fortunate. So shout out to the hospital and Russell Tippin in Odessa as well at the Medical Center and Hospital for sharing his vaccines with us, as well as Mrs. Briscoe, Mrs. Bryans, Mr. Dominguez. Mr. Davis, because we were ahead of the game here in Fort Stockton and Pecos County. And shout out to Joe Schuster and those people for making that happen for our people. So we do appreciate that. Do virtual students have to go back to school? I know they have to go for testing. Bianca Mendoza asked a question. She says, "Do virtual students have to go back to school? I know they have to go for testing." That is correct. Students have to go. Okay, here's the thing. Here's what TEA is saying about testing. Okay, I'm going to answer this question. Testing, they what TEA is saying. Hey, all schools in Texas, if you have kids who are virtually at home, you have to encourage them and prove that you encourage those students to want to go to school, for their parents to take them to school so they can test on their STAR test. We have to prove that we did the best we could to get kids there to test. So that is true that Mrs. Mendoza did ask that question. But the other question part of that is, do students have to go back to school? Well, I think your question is going to be, do students have to go back to the school in the building? Right now, we still have that. Fort Stockton ISD is still giving people that option. Although there are students out there who, if they're not doing their work, they're not checking in with their teachers, they're not doing anything done. And we've worked hard to get Chromebooks to anybody who needs one. All right. So if there's an issue with that, you got to let the school know. There's some kids we still really haven't heard from. We know they're in town. We've gone to their house. We've called them. Mrs. Casas has probably gone and visited them a lot, but we just don't know what's going on. And it's kind of upsetting because we know that in the end, the kids are the ones who are going to suffer the most. And so we have to be mindful that kids need school to learn to do well and for their future. And if you're behind 1 year, the only way you can make up time is you got to give more time. You got to do more. And that can be frustrating. Okay. And so I hope that answered your question, Mrs. Mendoza. So the question is, do kids have to go back to school? Not really, but I will tell you this: if kids are not making it, they're not doing their work, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, we have two options. A, we go through the process of getting them back to school. And the second thing we don't like to do is take them to truancy court. And we've had truancy court already this year because kids just don't do anything. All right. And so truancy court is fines. It can be community service. It can be all kinds of things. It can be put on probation. So that's an inconvenience. So bottom line is, that we have to be very mindful of that. So we have two options that we're doing. We don't like to take people to court because it takes time out of our hands, when it takes principals away from their campus, when we know they need to be working with their students. And so it's not the very best thing for us. Now, on the flip side of that, I know that we have some students who are doing very well in the schools, whether at home and virtually, and I get that. And so we do have kids who are doing very well with their virtual learning, and I applaud those parents who have set up a structure for them to do that. Next fall, I suspect, we don't know. Right now, this is what we're going by. We have masks for 3 more months of school left, basically, or less than 3 months of school. And so I think we've already made it this far. And so I think we're going to be fine by keeping going with what we're doing, just to make sure we still have a few cases out there. There's variants out there of this coronavirus. And so we don't know a whole lot. And we also know that hopefully with spring break season coming around, that we don't have too many issues in the country, in the state, especially down on the beaches and in the coastal areas of Texas, but you never know. So hopefully that answered your questions. I probably went a little bit too much into it, but I just saw Miss Mendoza. Thank you, Mrs. Mendoza, for letting me answer your question. I so encourage them to do work as if they were in the school building. Yes, and I do appreciate you doing that. And there's a lot of parents that are doing that. The best thing to do is to just have them on a routine and let your school know that there's issues. And I'll show that slide here in a little bit that we like to show our the information about our schools. So that link there is a letter in English and Spanish. A lot of you may have gotten that letter, but it's just to encourage kids to get their stuff done because they have to be learning. Okay. All right. We'll continue to wear face masks and shields, social distancing to the extent possible. We'll still do hand hygiene and respiratory etiquette. People think, well, what's respiratory etiquette? That's sneezing in your shoulder and things like that. We're going to still clean and disinfect. We always collaborate with our local health officials, and we do an amazing job. We will keep in contact with any with our parents in our community with any vaccines that are going to be going on next week and to the week after that. And shout out to our nurses and our staff for helping the hospital and the county get those vaccines out to people. We'll still do antigen tested for students and staff in Fort Stockton ISD. That's not going to change. If you're sick, stay home. Just stay home, see your doctor, let the school know. It can be any kind of sickness. Just that's never changed. Okay. Being sick is, whether it's flu, stomach bug, just let the school know. Okay. If you are being tested or testing, you just remember you can have up to 14-day quarantine. It could be 7, it could be 10, it could be depending on different situations and close contact, especially while you're waiting for your results. And just let the school know. All right. Just let us go, hey, we're going to be quarantining. We've gotten this far. We're on the down slope from now on. And this is just a reminder of what we're doing, trying to avoid crowds as best you can, wear masks, stay 6 feet apart. This is the contact information from the radio station, the voice of Pecos County. And then the Pioneer and our website, Facebook, Twitter. Let's see here. Oh, just a reminder, if you have not done this as a parent and you've informed your school, it is important to, I clicked on that link. I'm so sorry. I clicked on that link right there. But if you text yes to 67587, that opts you in for the text messages that we send out to our parents. Now, if you're not a parent, you don't have a kid in school, it's probably not worth it, because you have to, what that system does is it looks to what we have on file for our kids as far as their phone number. And then it says, okay, so that phone number is this kid. And so I know that this person wants to get text messages, it links it, and then we're good to go. So that's all you have to do. If you do have a kid in school and you want to get text messages, that's the way to do it, especially if we do send a lot of information out that way as well. Thank you for getting those phone calls about vaccines being distributed. I know we sent a few phone calls out just to inform people that there are vaccines at Pecos County Civic Center. And so we do appreciate you being patient. If you want to get some more information, you can go to CDC, Department of State Health Services. That's the Texas CDC, our school website. This is a contact information. I want to reiterate that if you have any issues, any questions about what is best for your kid in your school, you can ask who you want, but I will tell you the most important people to ask are the principals at your schools. That's what they are there for. They're there to serve you. They're there to answer questions. So please get in touch with them if you have a question about what is going on in your school. They are the number one place to go, because sometimes people call up here, and I have to be honest with you, with 5 campuses and other buildings in the school district, sometimes it's hard to know everything that's going on. We try to, but we sometimes don't know all the answers. But more importantly, we don't know if we really have the best answer to help you guys out if it's particular to a campus. So we do encourage you to do that. One last thing, we do have substitute training on Friday the 19th. Well, that'll be at the high school library, I believe. That's going to be 1200 West 17th. We have a training at 9 to 12 in the morning. We're always in need of substitutes due to the fact that we have a lot of spring stuff going on. And so let me add that back to the screen. So we do have a substitute training. So if you're out there, you want to be a substitute, come on down. We'll have the training. We have 2 options still of the training. We can do the online version of it, or we can do the face-to-face, which we're doing this time here. And so it is going to be at the high school on Friday the 19th from 9 a.m. to 12. If you have any questions, you can please call us at 336-4000 extension 12, or you can go online. We have substitutes for classroom teachers, daycare aides, food services, custodian, bus drivers, you name it, we have it. So that is that. Thank you for the privilege of your time. I am going to remove this. It's been about 24 minutes and almost 25 minutes. Thank you guys for being on there. Those of you who are still watching, there's about 42 people on. Oh, we have some people watching YouTube. They're very good. And 1 person on Twitter. And 39 people on Facebook Live. Okay. Let me see here. You're welcome. Thank you for answering my questions. Both my girls have a honor roll to encourage them to do work as if they were in the school building. Thank you, Mrs. Mendoza. We do appreciate you doing that. I know sometimes it's hard being a parent nowadays, but I do appreciate you being the parent that your girls need you to be. Sometimes what kids don't understand is that no means yes to a better life, better way of doing things, and so I do appreciate you doing that. We need parents like you to help be a partner with your children and the schools so that we can help them educate. So shout out to you, Mrs. Mendoza, for doing that. Miss Rosemary, you're welcome. Rosemary Sanchez, she's another fan out there. We do appreciate that. Mrs. Melissa Granado Ronquillo, what's the number for the text message? Let me go back to that, okay? She's asking me a question about here. All right, that's the number right there. What is the number for text message? I'm going to type it in here. Text yes to 67587. Now, just keep in mind though that if the school does not have your correct phone number in the system, it won't work. So some people get their numbers changed for whatever reason. Not a big deal. Call the school and let them know. That's very important that you call the school and let them know. All right, thank you, Miss Rosemary. We do appreciate that. She's always out there, good fan. All right. Oh, yes, and Miss Bergon did say thank you for doing that for your girls. I agree, Mrs. Bergon. Thank you for letting Mrs. Mendoza know that because it's tough raising kids, and I applaud all you guys, and especially you moms that are out there taking care of the kids and dads that are out there. It's just tough. It's tough raising kids, and I know that in the long run, they will benefit from that. So with that being said, it's been almost 30 minutes. Think I'm going to be done because I'm kind of tired today. But we'll keep using this to update as we go along. Remember, schools, you wear your mask. Daylight savings time on Saturday night, Sunday morning. Go to bed early. Drink a lot of water. Take your vitamins. And we'll see you guys Monday morning. All right. Thank you, guys. Be careful, deuces. Thank you. Be careful. Be safe. And we will see you guys later.